Welcome to the Knowledge Seeker channel. This channel is dedicated to exploring critical issues in the world. The title of this presentation is the Niger Delta South-South a colony of Nigeria? The purpose of this presentation is to achieve three goals. 1. To explore the issues pertaining to the nationalization and management of mineral resources in Nigeria. 2. To determine whether there is a double standard in the management of liquid minerals and solid minerals in the country. And 3. Find out why the Niger Delta South-South is treated as a colony rather than as part of Nigeria. To accomplish the goals of the presentation, the following arguments are made. 1. There is a double standard in the nationalization, control, and management of mineral resources in Nigeria. 2. Due to the double standard, the Niger Delta South-South is treated as a colony of Nigeria rather than as part of Nigeria. And 3. The double standard creates anger and a feeling of being militarily occupied, thereby violating the natural rights of the inhabitants of the zone to make decisions about the exploration of oil and gas in the region. 4. To reduce the pent-up anger in the oil region, Nigeria must totally nationalize solid minerals the way it does oil and gas, or partially nationalize oil and gas the way it does solid mineral resources. 5th, if individuals are allowed to mine gold, tin, and other solid minerals, then the indigents of the oil region must also be allowed to explore and refine petroleum. 6. The presence of the armed forces in the oil region and the absence of the armed forces in the solid mineral zones reinforces the feeling that the oil wealth is being expropriated. 7. The Okwama tragedy is a microscopic reflection of the issues concerning the way Nigeria treats the oil region. This is the map of Nigeria showing the oil and gas producing regions in the country. The brutal killings of 17 Nigerian soldiers, including a lieutenant colonel, 2 majors, 1 captain, and 13 others in or near Okwama in South Ughelli local government area of Delta State brings to the fore the Niger Delta South-South issue concerning the ownership, control, regulation, and the management of oil and gas in Nigeria. Although the killings of the soldiers is generally reported to have taken place following the military's effort to negotiate peace in an ongoing land dispute between Okwama and Okoloba communities in South Ughelli local government area and the Bomode local government area of Delta State, respectively. However, the narrative is not convincing because it has a gaping hole. Many Nigerians doubted the army story because they could not understand why a military team that was going on a peace mission to negotiate with Okwama community ended up being brutally murdered in execution style without any reason. Some prominent indigents of the oil region, including former executive editor of the Guardian newspaper, Mr. Abraham Ogbodo, strongly believe that the killings of the 17 soldiers had more to do with rivalry emanating from oil bunkering in the region rather than the feud between Okwama and Okoloba. Thus, it seems that Most indigents of the oil region do not agree with the explanation given by the army to explain what the soldiers were attempting to do in Okwama before their brutal killings. Why? The reason is that many indigents of the Niger Delta South have complained for decades to no avail that the Nigerian military that's supposed to protect oil facilities is extensively involved in oil bunkering activities. Therefore, some speculated that the bloody incident was prompted by a rivalry between the military and oil bunkering gangs in the oil region, as well as intercommunal struggle to control oil lands. It should be noted that tension is very high in the oil region because many youths and communities believe that while they cannot make a living by legitimately refining and marketing petroleum products, others carry out massive bunkering of the oil wealth to enrich themselves at their own expense. Quite often, the massive bunkering of the oil is carried out by powerful individuals who are connected to the corridors of national political power, hence are never arrested for their crimes. Even when an oil bunkering ship is caught, the owners of the vessel are rarely prosecuted. The indigents of the oil region are familiar with the notorious oil bunkering ship known as the African Pride. It was arrested and detained many times by the Nigerian Navy. Each time, it mysteriously disappeared from the custody of the Nigerian Navy and reappeared to continue its oil bunkering operations. Nigerians are aware that some members of the military collude in bunkering oil. Hence, the Buhari administration hired private security companies to assist in stopping oil bunkering. It seems that the Nigerian military is not happy with the private security companies. Therefore, Okwama is simply a metaphor for the way Nigeria treats the oil region like a colony. Nigeria forces various communities to compete unnecessarily to control oil lands. Thus, there is no love lost between the indigents of the oil region and the Nigerian military, which the people believe is there to intimidate them while allowing Nigerians from other regions to exploit the oil wealth. It should be noted that whenever soldiers are killed by some miscreants in the South and the Southeast, the Nigerian military always react by punishing an entire community. Quite often, houses are burned down as a collective punishment. On the other hand, despite the massive killings of Nigerian soldiers and police officers by Boko Haram in the northeast, bandits and kidnappers in the northwest, and herdsmen in north central, Nigerian soldiers rarely go on massive revengeful destruction of communities. Otherwise, there would have been no community left in the upper north for the series of killings of security personnel by Islamist militants. Likewise, the rights of traditional leaders in the South and the Southeast are regularly violated, while the Nigerian military rarely violates the rights of traditional leaders in the upper north of the country. This is Okwama on fire. Some Nigerians believe that it was said by the Nigerian army to punish the community, and the army denied that it is responsible for the fire. As it is always the case in the oil region, when soldiers or policemen are killed, innocent people are rounded up and beaten or even killed for no reason. As a result, after Okwama, a unit of the Nigerian army raided Igbomotoro community in Bayelsa State, where some people were killed. Suddenly, the issue started to assume a much bigger regional dimension. Then, Chief E.K. Clark's residence in Kiagbodo was raided, as well as a compound in Ugeli. A day later, Chief Asari Dokubo informed the world in a video presentation that two military gunboats suddenly appeared near his waterfront residence in Buguma, Rivers State. This prompted him to say that the Nigerian army was provoking the Ijaws and he should stop the provocation. Then, Sobo Mabo Jack Rich, otherwise known as Egberi Papa, and his men were attacked in Sokun in Dagama local government area of Rivers State, where two of his men were reported killed by a unit of the Nigerian army. Concerned, the Ijaw Youth Council stated in a press statement, and I quote, "In the last few months, Ijaw lands and our prominent leaders have been invaded, harassed, arrested, and embarrassed for whatever strange reasons by the military that the Ijaw people are yet to know. Too many Ijaw leaders and critical stakeholders have been killed, harassed, and humiliated in the past few weeks that we are yet to know the reasons behind such attacks and invasions." Unquote. The traditional leader of Okwama, King Clement Ikolo, was declared wanted and treated like a common criminal without giving him any respect. Thus, from the brutal killings of 17 soldiers and the military need to capture the culprits, leading to revengeful killings and the burning down of houses in Okwama and Igbomotoro, the matter has turned full circle to refocus attention on the Nigerian treatment of the oil region. It should be noted that the inhabitants of the oil region have persistently complained about the injustice being meted to them following the nationalization of the oil and gas wealth, the distribution of oil blocks, the domination of the Nigerian National Oil Corporation by Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions, the lack of national will to clean the environmental pollution created by oil exploration and gas flaring, and the military occupation of the oil region. These issues led to the oil war, which took place from 1998 to about 2009, where the youth of the region took up arms to destroy oil and gas facilities in the region. It should further be noted that Nigeria has always neglected and marginalized the Niger Delta, even after the Henry Willings Commission hearings in 1957, 1958, which recommended that the region should be treated as a special economic development zone. The failure to pay attention to the region, resulting in extreme marginalization and deprivation, led Azigboro, Samuel Owunaro, and Nottingham Dick and their colleagues to form the Niger Delta Volunteer Service and declare the Niger Delta Republic in February 1966. This is a picture of Isaac Boro, Samuel Owunaro, and the Nottingham after they were released from detention following their rebellion. The expropriation of the oil wealth through nationalization and marginalization of the oil region compelled Chief Ken Saro-Wiwa to mount an international campaign to galvanize support for resource control. He and other 8 Ogoni leaders were sentenced to death and killed for opposing the way Nigeria treated the oil region. This is the picture of the late Chief Ken Saro-Wiwa. Again, let's look at the Niger Delta and the South-South region. It is made up of 9 states. The Niger Delta South-South zone of Nigeria is made up of the states of Abia, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and Rivers, as indicated above in the map. They are referred to as the South-South states because they are the most southerly states in Nigeria, apart from Lagos and possibly Ogun states. These states constitute the oil and gas producing region of Nigeria, including Anambra State today. The wealth generated from the exploration of oil and gas in these states bears substantial responsibility for shouldering the national revenue of Nigeria. The Niger Delta is like the Democratic Republic of the Congo in a much smaller scale, while the DRC is one of the richest countries in the world due to the availability of several critical minerals. The Niger Delta South-South zone is currently the richest part of Nigeria due to the availability of petroleum and gas. Unfortunately, just as the DRC is embroiled in conflict due to the scramble by various stakeholders to lay claim to the riches, the Niger Delta South-South zone too is mired in conflict and despair as various stakeholders scramble to grab as much of the oil wealth as possible. This is the Agbami oil field and the Okwuk oil field in the Atlantic Ocean by the Niger Delta. Just as the masses of the DRC are pauperized, tormented, and marginalized, so are the indigents of the Niger Delta South-South as the politically connected individuals in Nigeria feast on the oil wealth without caring about the owners of the oil and gas resources. Due to the perceived sense of exploitation, the Niger Delta South-South zone is treated as a colony rather than as part of Nigeria by the country's ruling elite. The oil wealth does not spread enough to reach the masses of the oil region, thereby fueling a feeling that the zone is colonized by Nigeria to serve as an oil plantation to enrich other parts of the country while starving the owners of the resources. The region is treated as a financial plantation in the sense that there is always pressure on the region to increase oil production. For instance, whenever there is a shortfall in national revenue, there is pressure to increase oil exploration in order to make up for the shortfall in revenue. Likewise, whenever there is a fall in global oil prices, pressure builds up to increase oil production with total disregard for the feelings of those in the oil region. These are a unit of Nigerian troops patrolling in the Niger Delta South. Again, a military craft patrolling the waterways of the Niger Delta. Now, why is the Niger Delta South being colonized? A critic might wonder why the Niger Delta South is colonized by Nigeria when the zone is already part of the sovereign state of Nigeria. Well, it is maintained here that the Niger Delta South zone is colonized because Nigerian leaders do not treat the zone as part of the territory of Nigeria, but rather as an oil plantation for the generation of wealth for Nigeria and the ruling elite. The zone is viewed as a colony of Nigeria because the inhabitants of the region are not treated as full Nigerians. Quite often, financial resources generated through oil and gas exploration are used to develop the infrastructure in other parts of the country, while the oil region is ignored. Thus, what is colonialism? Colonialism, according to Robert Bluner, and I quote, is the process by which one nation controls the political and economic activities of another, less developed and less powerful, and I unquote. While the Niger Delta is part of Nigeria, the manner in which the military leaders of the country enacted decrees to nationalize the ownership of oil and gas, thereby forcefully expropriating the rights of the owners of the resources without proper negotiation, amounted to colonization. After the nationalization and expropriation, oil blocks were shared among the military, political, and business elites of the regions that wielded political power, to the dismay of the inhabitants of the oil region. Even in 2024, Nigeria has not explained to the inhabitants of the oil region the rationale for distributing oil blocks to individuals who are not indigenes of the oil region. On the other hand, the indigenes of the oil region have no stake whatsoever in the mining of gold and other solid minerals in other parts of Nigeria. The colonization and expropriation of mineral resources in the Niger Delta South initially began when the British enacted the Mineral Ordinances of 1914 and the Petroleum Act of 1934, thereby expropriating the right of ownership of petroleum and gas from the inhabitants of the region and passing such ownership to the British business interest. Thus, throughout the colonial era, the British owned the right to explore petroleum and gas in the region and not the citizens who own the resources. The British gave an exclusive right to explore the resources to the Royal Dutch Shell Company. That is why it was the biggest oil explorer in Nigeria for a long time. When Nigeria supposedly gained independence in 1960, the principle of derivation was adopted as a national policy in the distribution of revenue accruing from the cultivation of cash crops such as groundnut, cocoa, palm oil, and palm kernel. Basically, The regions that produced these products received the revenue and then paid taxes or contributed to the federal government's coffers, or both the federal government and the regions share the revenue. This allowed the regions to utilize the revenues generated to develop and modernize their regions. The Nigerian military, after taking over power in January 1966, unitarized the country, even though it is a federal system where power is shared between the federal government and the regions. Perhaps to ensure a steady source of funds to prosecute the Nigerian Civil War, which took place from 1967 to January 1970, the military regime of General Yakubu Gowon enacted decrees that resulted in the nationalization of the ownership, management, exploration, and marketing of oil and gas. The decision took away the economic rights of the indigents of the oil region to make decisions about the exploration and management of the production of oil and gas, just as the British did, as shown below. The military enacted the Oil in Navigable Waters Act of 1968, the Petroleum Act of 1969, the Oil Pipelines Act of 1969, the Associated Gas Reinjection Act of 1969. This was followed by the Offshore Oil Revenue Decree of 1971. These decrees were enacted during the military regime of General Yakubu Gowon during the Civil War and after the war. So, General Gowon is responsible for the maximum nationalization of oil and gas in Nigeria after independence. General Gowon is followed by General Olusegun Obasanjo, who helped to enact the Petroleum Production and Distribution Act of 1975. Then, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation was established on April 1, 1977 through the merging of the National Oil Corporation and the Federal Ministry of Petroleum and Energy Resources. This was followed by the Exclusive Economic Zone Act of 1978, the Land Use Act of 1978. As you can see, these decrees were passed by the military regime of General Olusegun Obasanjo, as stated earlier. This is the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation that is solely responsible for exploring oil and gas in Nigeria. From this moment, petroleum and gas, referred to as liquid minerals, became the exclusive property of the federal government, and the inhabitants of the oil region who owned the resources lost the ability to make decisions about exploration and management of the wealth of their territory. Through these acts, the federal government expropriated the natural rights of the owners of petroleum and gas, and they became mere onlookers while other Nigerians reaped the benefits. Although the federal government proclaimed that all minerals belong to the exclusive list, which means that only the national government can own, regulate, and manage their exploration, Surprisingly, oil stocks, known in Nigeria as oil blocks, were given to members of the ruling elite, their friends and associates, while those who really owned the resources were deprived and continue to be deprived from owning the stocks. Thus, about 85% of the oil stocks are owned by non-indigens of the oil region. Those who own oil blocks become instant millionaires and even billionaires, while the real owners become poorer and desperate. The former Senate Committee Chairman on Business and Rules, Mr. Ita Enang, alleged in 2013 that 83% of the oil blocks are owned by the northern political and business elite. Now, let's see how the nationalization of the oil well took place after civilians took over from the military. To increase national control of all minerals during the era of civilian democratic rule, after the military handed over of power, Nigeria enacted the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act of 2007. One of the conditions of this act is that no person shall search for or exploit mineral resources in Nigeria or divert or exploit or impound water for the purpose of mining except as provided in this act. With the passage of the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act of 2007, all minerals in the country were supposed to be owned and managed by the federal government of Nigeria, with no exception for either solid or liquid minerals. In this regard, just as Nigeria established the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the indigents of the Niger Delta South expected the national government to establish the Nigerian National Gold Corporation and or the Nigerian National Solid Minerals Corporation to regulate and manage the mining of gold as it did to oil and gas. In fact, they expected Nigeria to create public agencies to manage the solid minerals so that the country can make good use of the wealth generated through mineral exploration for the development and modernization of the entire country. As will be seen later, this has not happened. While Nigeria completely nationalizes oil and gas, it refuses to completely nationalize solid minerals despite passing various acts and laws as indicated above. So let's look at the regulation of the minerals. Since Nigeria had repeatedly stated that all minerals belong to the federal government, the indigents of the oil region expected the national government to treat all minerals as national resources. However, unlike oil and gas, which are referred to as liquid minerals, the federal government treats solid minerals differently, thereby violating its own laws concerning the ownership of all minerals. Thus, Nigeria has about 40 solid minerals as indicated below. And these minerals are spread all over the country. Now, of the states that have solid minerals, 3 top the list. A. Nasarawa State has 25 different minerals. B. Plateau State has 22 different minerals. And C. Kaduna State has 19 different minerals. So these 3 states have the largest number of solid minerals in Nigeria. Now, to coordinate the development and exploration of solid minerals, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development was established in 1985 to spur the development of solid minerals in the country. The Solid Minerals Development Fund was established in 2013. The federal government and states agreed to cooperate on mining of solid minerals. In 2012, the federal government awarded licenses to 7 firms, including Retail, Savannah Gold, CGC Nigeria Limited, Erin Mineral Resources, Kering 5 Limited, Mines Geotechnics, and Northern Numero Resources Limited to mine gold. Fifth, other minerals that were proposed to be mined included manganese, columbite, chromite, coal, lead, zinc, tantalus, gemstone, and granite. 6. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development in Goodluck Jonathan's administration, Musa Sada, revealed that 600 mining cooperatives were registered during that administration. So in November 27, 2018, the federal government awarded 16 contracts to mining companies to offer consulting services in preparation for the exploration of solid minerals. You see, Nigeria has always insisted that all minerals belongs to the national government, and yet not until 2018 did the federal government decided to hire consulting firms to prepare the country for the exploration of solid minerals. That is amazing. That means that both the military regimes and the civilian democratic regimes are not interested in nationalizing solid minerals. This is gold mining in Nigeria. Again, private gold mining in Nigeria. Private gold mining in Nigeria by Nigerian citizens. The indigents of the oil region believe that there is a double standard in the way Nigeria manages minerals in the country. So let's look at step by step how Nigeria applies a double standard in the process. 1. The first inkling that Nigeria operates a double standard in the management of mineral resources came about when Ife and Modakeke engaged in a bloody conflict over land ownership and the sharing of wealth generated from the mining of gold. General David Ajor, the first military governor of the Midwest region and the chief of army staff during General Yakubu Gowon's regime, noticed that General Olusegun Obasanjo, the Nigerian military head of state, encouraged the disputants to settle the conflict and share the revenue accruing from gold mining, even though gold is a national resource. General Ejo noticed that General Obasanjo did not send the military to seize the gold mines and the revenue that accrued from gold mining, but encouraged them to share the proceeds amicably, even though gold is a national resource like oil and gas. That is a clear double standard. On the other hand, as soon as the situation in the Niger Delta deteriorated with inter-ethnic conflict and the struggle for resource control, General Ejo noted that the military was dispatched to the oil region, hence the establishment of the Joint Task Force Operation Restore Hope. Since then, the military has occupied the oil region as if the region is a colony of Nigeria. It is often the case that when a country sends military forces to a particular region of the same country in order to obtain mineral resources, it means that the country is exploiting the region like a colony, and the country is acting like a colonial power. Otherwise, it would have negotiated amicable terms that are acceptable to the indigents of the region who own the resources. Second, the second revelation of a double standard came about through a media report which described private mining of tin ore in Plateau State, especially near Jos and the surrounding environs. The third revelation about a national double standard in the regulation of mineral management in Nigeria took place when Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State made a press statement during the launching of the first Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit, indicating that the state, especially in Benin Gwari local government area, has one of the largest deposits of gold in the country. He announced that the state government was looking for private mining companies to mine gold in the state. For the indigents of the Niger Delta, South, were shocked to hear former Governor Bello Matawalle of Zamfara State say that his state had saved 31 kilograms of refined gold as a reserve. He added that the gold was generated through local mining. Additionally, he stated that an interested party was willing to offer 5 billion naira and expected a regular supply of gold from the state. The revelation prompted the former governor of Delta State, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, to react by saying, and I quote, "We cannot apply laws in such a manner that it becomes discriminatory because you cannot mine solid minerals somewhere in Zamfara and you can't allow Niger Delta to manage their oil," and I unquote. Fifth, it has been reported variously that some of the violence that have bedecked Benue, Kaduna, Plateau, Taraba, and Zamfara states is due to competition emanating from the scramble by private miners to lay claim to various mines. In doing so, they hire thugs and gunmen to provide security for their mining operations. The Institute for Security Studies noted, and I quote, collaboration between politically connected Nigerians and Chinese corporations in illegal gold mining drives rural banditry and violent local conflicts in some parts of Nigeria. This includes the Northwest, the North Central, and to some extent Southwest regions. I unquote. That means that illegal gold mining is carried out by very powerful individuals in the country. 6. Another revealing evidence of Nigeria's double standard in the nationalization, regulation, and management of mineral resources is that while oil and gas are totally nationalized, and the indigents of the Niger Delta South cannot explore and refine oil, individuals in other parts of Nigeria are allowed to mine gold and other solid minerals. In fact, even foreigners come to Nigeria to either obtain licenses to mine solid minerals or do so illegally. Hence, when an explosion took place in the city of Ibadan, Oyo State, in southwest Nigeria that killed about 5 people, injured about 77 people, and devastated an entire neighborhood in Bodejo subsection of the city. It was revealed that a foreigner who had been mining gold illegally was responsible for the explosion. It was reported that the individual and his foreign colleagues kept dangerous mining explosives in his residence, hence the explosion that took place on January 16, 2024. 7th, the Niger Delta South is militarily occupied to ensure that oil flows from the region and illegal refineries are destroyed. On the other hand, the Federal Ministry of Solid Mineral Development only announced in early March 2024 the creation of mining marshals to stop illegal mining. The marshals will come from the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps and not from the Nigerian military as it is in the South. So you can see that there is an unwillingness to nationalize solid minerals by those who wield political power in Nigeria. So let's see how that goes. The truth is that the Ministry of Solid Mineral Development is not eager to regulate and coordinate the mining of solid minerals. The situation is so pathetic that a newspaper reported the reckless manner in which gold was being mined around the Obafemi Awolowo University. The reporter for the newspaper wrote, and I quote, "It is quite pathetic that although it has been 2 weeks since the issue of unregulated mining in the OAU gained public attention, the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals has not found it worthy to react, not to talk of mandating security agencies to go after everyone involved in this reckless act." The deafening silence of the Minister of Solid Minerals suggests complacency. It suggests that there was a conspiracy between these miners and the minister to endanger the lives of both staff and students at OAU through unregulated mining, and I unquote. The lack of interest in nationalizing the mining of solid minerals while oil and gas are heavily nationalized is further attested to by one Maurice Ogbonaya's observation. He wrote, and I quote, "An estimated 80% of mining in the Northwest region is carried out illegally and on artisanal basis by local populations. The mining of large untapped mineral deposits in the area, especially gold, which has strategic importance and economic value, is at the root of community violence." I unquote. That shows that individuals are allowed to mine gold in the north. Even though all minerals are supposed to be nationalized simultaneously, there is a tendency on the part of Nigeria's ruling elite from the solid mineral resources rich zones in the north and the southwest who wield national power to not want to nationalize minerals in their zones so that their people can earn income from private mining. As a result, time after time, high-level public officials who are responsible for mining solid minerals would announce that the national government would stop all illegal mining of gold, tin, and other solid minerals. Quite often, nothing happens after the announcements. Therefore, it was not surprising that after the explosion in Ibadan, the Minister of Solid Mineral Development, Dele Alake, announced again that the government will stop illegal mining. He stated, and I quote, "The federal government was committed to ending illegal mining in the country's mining sector," and I unquote. Then he added, and I quote, "A lot of banditry, terrorism, and insecurity which were being associated with the mining sector were actually sponsored by illegal miners who are powerful people in the society," and I'll quote. So basically, the minister is revealing that illegal mining is carried out by very powerful individuals. Hence, the national government find it very difficult to nationalize solid minerals. Now, let's see how the double standard leads to anger in the oil region. The indigents of the oil region feel exploited, marginalized, and colonized. Why? There are so many reasons. One, in reality, only oil and gas which are found in the Niger Delta South-South are heavily nationalized by the Nigerian government. Two, the citizens in the oil region cannot buy licenses from the Nigerian government to explore and refine petroleum as their counterparts in other parts of the country. Three, Nigerians in other regions can earn income through mining of gold and other solid minerals to take care of their families. Nigerians in the oil region cannot do so. They are forced to watch helplessly while Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions feast on the oil wealth. Fourth, the oil wealth is shared among national state, and local governments, including the Federal Capital Territory. While revenue from solid minerals mostly end up in the pockets of individuals in the non-oil producing regions. So the oil wealth takes care of 37 states plus numerous local governments, while solid minerals does not do that. Fifth, the Niger Delta is militarily occupied in order to facilitate the expropriation of the oil wealth to enrich other parts of the country. Six, the federal government refuses to clean the environmental pollution that has devastated the oil region. Even the plan to clean the Ogoniland was initiated by the United Nations Environmental Programme. Thus, the massive polluting of the rivers and farmlands and gas flaring have negatively impacted the traditional economic activities of the inhabitants of the Niger Delta to the extent that poverty and malnutrition have become a reality of daily life. Seventh, likewise, complicated health conditions due to environmental pollution are afflicting the inhabitants of the Niger Delta South-South. This is a classic case of oil pollution. Again, a good example of how the oil has polluted the waterways of the Niger Delta South-South. This is toxic smoke in the Niger Delta due to oil and gas exploration. 8. Most of the oil stocks are owned mostly by Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions. 9. The government agency that is responsible for managing the oil and gas in the Niger Delta South-South, that is the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, now known as the NNPCL, is dominated by Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions. 10th, some individuals from the power welding groups insisted unabashedly that the petroleum and gas in the Niger Delta belongs to them in the north, so they have a right to dominate oil operations in the Niger Delta South-South. This is a classic case of expropriation. It is like saying that the oil in Louisiana State belongs to Texas State in the USA. 11. Due to the fact that the Niger Delta South-South is militarily occupied, any altercation between the indigents of the oil region results in harsh military crackdowns. Quite often, the military tends to inflict destruction on entire communities if any of their members is killed. The list of communities that have been ravaged by the military is long. However, a few will do here, including Umuechem, Odi, Odiama, Oyigbo, Obuama, Gbaramatu, Ayakoromo, Okwama, Ege, Choba, and so forth. The most recent ones are Okwama, Igbomotoro, and Olota. In fact, Okwama is still under military control and the indigents have been sleeping in the bush since March 14, 2024. 12. Even the governor of Delta State and the commissioner of police in the state were not allowed to visit Okwama until after a month. The commander-in-chief of the armed forces remained quiet about the suffering of the people of Okwama. On the other hand, Boko Haram members who have killed thousands of Nigerian soldiers, police officers, and civilians are rehabilitated and let go by the same Nigerian army that is always eager to inflict maximum pain and destruction in the south-south, the southeast, and sometimes in the southwest. Some former Boko Haram members end up being recruited into the Nigerian army. 13. While the Niger Delta South-South has been militarily occupied since the establishment of the Joint Task Force Operation Restore Hope in August 2003 to stop interethnic conflict as well as protect oil facilities, the federal government did not establish any security outfit to stop interethnic conflict in the north, and neither did it do anything to stop illegal mining in the southwest and the north until the Minister of Solid Minerals Development announced the establishment of mining marshals to prevent illegal mining in March 2024. The marshals are coming from the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps and not from the military as in the Niger Delta South-South. This is a unit of the Nigerian Army on patrol in the Niger Delta South-South. 14th. While funds from the oil wealth are used in carrying out infrastructural development in other regions of the country, the Niger Delta South-South is always neglected. The neglect is so severe that the only road that links the oil-producing states, that is, the east-west road, is impassable during the flood season. Government agencies like the Niger Delta Development Commission and the Ministry of the Niger Delta that are supposed to develop the region are more like piggy banks for politicians and high-level government officials to loot the financial resources. There is no legal consequence for embezzling funds from these two government agencies that are supposed to serve the oil region. 15. Nigerians in the oil region feel exploited and cheated because their region has borne the largest proportion of revenue for the national income, while income generated from solid minerals goes directly into the pockets of the miners and very little goes into the national coffer. The sector has contributed 818.04 billion naira, which is equivalent to 3.2 billion American dollars to the federal government between 2007 and 2021. So in a 14-year period, only 818 billion.04 billion naira that Nigeria has been able to receive from solid minerals. In 2021, the North Central, Southwest, and South-South had the highest impact on total production in solid minerals with 31.2%, 30.5%, and 23.7% respectively. On the other hand, crude oil exports in 5 years amounted to $206.06 billion. The breakdown is as follows. In 2015, crude oil earned Nigeria $41.17 billion. In 2016, it was $27.29 billion. In 2017, it was $37.98 billion. In 2018, it was $54.51 billion. In 2019, it was $45.11 billion. So, as you can see, while the totality of solid minerals production contributed only 3.2 billion from 2007 to 2021, the oil region contributed 206.06 billion in just 5 years. Prominent Nigerian lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, an ardent defender of human and civil rights, alleged that $9 billion worth of gold is smuggled out of Nigeria every year through private jets. That means that individuals make more money from gold than the Nigerian government. 16. The Niger Delta South people are angry because Nigeria signed the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline with Niger, Algeria, and Morocco without consulting or including them in the process of negotiation. The deal benefits mostly Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions, while the owners of gas are reduced to mere onlookers. 17. Nigerian authorities rarely take the interests of the Niger Delta stakeholders into consideration before trying to sell major oil and gas facilities to would-be buyers, even though these facilities are located in the oil region. This is the signing of the Trans-Sahara Gas Pipeline Agreement. Now, let's see how the anger leads to the oil war. The anger emanating from the feeling that Nigeria treats the Niger Delta South as a colony by militarily occupying the region, expropriating the oil and gas wealth, and continuing to exploit the resources without appropriate compensation led to the first oil war. Some youths who could no longer tolerate the exploitation, discrimination, and marginalization and poverty in the midst of plenty launched an arms insurrection, leading to the destruction of oil facilities in the oil region from about 1998 to 2009, when the Presidential Amnesty Program was instituted to stop the war. While the peace held due to the PAP, tension continues to rise as Nigeria fails to abide by some of the conditions it agreed upon in negotiating with the Niger Delta Elders Forum. Why? 1. Due to the issues identified above that contributes to anger. 2. The president is always the minister of petroleum, but he is not interested in being the minister of solid minerals. Why? Why not? But Nigeria refuses to allow for resource control to take place. For individuals who refine oil in the Niger Delta South are treated harshly, while individuals are allowed to mine gold and other solid minerals in other parts of the country. 5th, the military treats the citizens of the oil region as captives while there is no military occupation in the solid minerals zones in other parts of the country. 6. Nigeria refuses to clean the massive pollution generated through oil and gas exploration, thereby destroying the economic base of the indigenes of the oil region. Thus, the brutal killings of 17 members of the army in Ukwama in March 2024 is connected to the power struggles that are going on between military authorities and some indigenous youths, as well as communities that compete to control oil well locations. This is the use of the Niger Delta during the oil war. Again, the use of the Niger Delta during the oil war against Nigeria. Now, let's look at the conclusion and recommendation to this presentation. 1. Indeed, there is a double standard in the management of mineral resources in Nigeria. While oil and gas are totally nationalized, minerals like gold, tin, and other solid minerals are barely regulated. Hence, Nigerians in the solid minerals region can mine them with little or no government regulation and control, while Nigerians in the oil and gas region cannot explore and refine them to make a living. 2. The double standard results in treating the Niger Delta South-South as a colony of Nigeria rather than as part of Nigeria. 3. Nigerians from the non-oil producing regions benefit most from oil and gas exploration, while the indigenes of the Niger Delta South-South are reduced to being mere beggars. 4. To demonstrate the colonization of the Niger Delta South-South, some Nigerians like Dr. Usman Bugaje strongly believe that it is the North that owns the oil wealth in the oil region and not the indigenes of the region. It is like saying that Niger owns the oil in Nigeria, Texas owns the oil in Louisiana, and Saudi Arabia owns the oil in the United Arab Emirates. This view contributes to the double standard where Nigerian rulers who are from the non-oil producing regions eagerly nationalize the resources and refuse to nationalize gold and other solid minerals in their own regions. 5th, the double standard resulting in the military occupation of the Niger Delta South-South breeds anger, and that led to the oil war and are contributing to an increasing tension as unemployment, poverty, and pollution-generated medical conditions afflict the indigenes. Recommendations: Nigeria must be urgently restructured with resource control being implemented. 2. If Nigeria is not willing to maximize the nationalization of solid minerals, then Nigeria must denationalize oil and gas. 3. If the solid minerals regions are not militarized, then the Joint Task Force Operation Restore Hope must be removed from the Niger Delta South-South. The indigenes of the oil region are tired of military occupation that results in massive oil bunkering. 4. If individuals and cooperatives are allowed to mine gold and other solid minerals, then individuals and cooperatives must be allowed to explore and refine petroleum in the oil region. 5th, Nigeria must embark on the massive cleaning of the oil pollution and gas flaring in the oil region. 6. The Nigerian military must stop the double standard in dishing out revengeful attacks in southern Nigeria, particularly in the south-south and the southeast. 7. In this regard, the Nigerian army must allow the people of Okuama to return to their homes after sleeping in the forest since March 14, 2024. 8. An independent investigation is needed to unravel the mystery concerning the killings of the military personnel. 9. In the upper north, where thousands of Nigerian soldiers have been killed, the Nigerian army rarely carries out revengeful killings of people and burning down of houses. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please subscribe to the channel and listen to other captivating presentations. Again, thank you.